Have you ever been accused of a crime besides something simple like a traffic violation? This is all it takes for law enforcement to seize your personal property. Civil asset forfeiture is a legal mechanism used to confiscate assets of those accused of a crime before being found guilty. The capability varies from state to state, but is used to separate citizens from their property. It has become highly controversial because it's seen as a punishment to someone who is yet to be found guilty in a court of law. The point of civil asset forfeiture in legal doctrine is to put an immediate stop to illegal activity. Originally in the U.S., it was used to confiscate contraband being smuggled from overseas. Normally, the owner of the ship was out of reach of the U.S. government, so they would confiscate the ship and the contraband to put a stop to the illegal activity. This changed in 1970 with the Drug Abuse and Control Act. This allowed law enforcement to confiscate the means of manufacture and transportation of illegal substances. This act was later expanded to include money and valuable items in 1978. In 1984, the Comprehensive Crime Control Act was passed. This expanded upon the original 1970 Act and now included all real property. All real property is simply any property that is used by a criminal, an alleged criminal. And this also allowed law enforcement organizations to keep the assets that they seized within their organizations instead of sending it all to the general fund to be used by any organization. Law enforcement agencies believe that civil asset forfeiture is an important tool to fight against crime. Their first argument is that it hits criminals where it hurts the most. Take money and property, it will stop the crime immediately. Other crimes are slowed or disorganized by these seizures. It also restricts the criminal from fleeing. It takes away modes of their transportation and their money that they would use to create a new life. Another argument is that it takes from the bad and gives to the good. Law enforcement agencies seize criminal property and use them for their community. And their final argument is that it streamlines crime fighting. There's no warrant needed in order to seize someone's property. All they have to do is be accused of illegal activity. Critics say that police tend to abuse the civil asset forfeiture laws because it benefits them. The 1984 crime bill mentioned earlier allows organizations to keep those assets seized in-house. This provides a direct incentive to seize those assets for police officers. Then after they are seized, the property can be used in sting operations and community outreach as well. Critics also say that it violates due process. The assets are taken without any judicial hearing. After assets are seized, the laws make it hard to get the property back to the original owner. The citizens have to provide proof that their assets were seized by specific law enforcement agencies. The burden of proof is on the citizen instead of the law enforcement agency or the judicial system. The 1984 crime bill also made it so law enforcement agencies refuse to cooperate in most instances because they want those assets for themselves. And then finally, some property is damaged, liquidated, or lost after it's been seized. So it makes it impossible for a citizen to get their assets back in good condition. In closing, civil asset forfeiture is a dangerous balancing act by the state. While there are some definitive positives to seizing the property of criminals, it has been abused often since 1970 by not targeting criminals only. No legal review beforehand means that we are depending on our law enforcement officers to do the right thing and narrow their seizures to property used in a crime. The problem is that the 1984 crime bill provided a direct incentive to abuse seizures in order to gain resources that these organizations would otherwise not have.